Okay, I think we are ready to go, people. We got a few things that we need to talk about today. We got a few things. I hope you got your coffee. We hanging out on the yacht today, y'all. I might be a little red this morning, but I'm running late. It was a rough weekend. I had to clean carpets. Oh my gosh. Cleaning carpets. Oh man. When you look at the water that comes out of those carpets, it is very clear. It should be very obvious to everybody that we should not have carpets in our house. Oh my gosh. Carpets are some of the most horrible, horrible things on the planet. All types of disease and bugs and germs and things live under those carpets. And it's just a horribly, horribly nasty thing. So I was doing that. I had to return the carpet machine, so I'm running late this morning. A little exhausted. Hopefully everybody's doing good. Look, try to see who's out and about this morning. I have a few things I want to talk about. I had a video this weekend. I got a little bothered by some things. When I get bothered, I kind of post a little bit. And you raise my voice a little bit. And I have to apologize. I'm not a voice raiser. Oh my goodness, I can't even see my comments. What's going on? There's some censorship. I don't know what's going on. I can't even see what y'all saying. Hold on, let's see if I can fix this. If I can't see, oh, there we go. All right. It's probably a user error. I have a good network here. All right, so we're going to talk about stuff. Hey, good morning, Trent, Tori, Renee, Mary, Lynn. All right, so a couple people out there this morning. So I was a little excited this weekend, so I couldn't really express myself in a way that I think people will process and digest what I'm trying to say. Some people get it, they understand. Other people a little still out to lunch and not understanding how this game is played. So we're going to touch on a hard topic this morning for a minute. I want to cover a few things, but I'm going to finish what I was trying to say on Whizzy privilege. I don't like to say the word, and I need to find other words to use it, because these things, they don't exist, right? They're figments of our imagination. And this is why. This is what I was thinking about this morning. So don't look at an argument in terms of whether or not it fits with your narrative and what you were raised to believe. Think about an argument in terms of who benefits from that argument being made, right? Like at the end of the day, somebody, like these things don't just come out of nowhere. Somebody comes up with an argument point and they disseminate it to people to get behind this concept because there's something to be gained from it, right? And so with the whole Whizzy privilege thing, I'm pretty hands off because, first of all, I'm not Whizzy. I'm not. I don't know if you can tell that. I'm a little red this morning. Got on a decent shirt. It's not my shirt. I don't have shirt privilege. I'm a little warm. I got to roll my sleeves up. This comes from my brother-in-law from a marriage a while ago. He's a classy dude. This brother was in Brentwood. Classy dude. He had nice shirts. I think this is his shirt. Got a little green sheen when you look at it from the side. But anyway, so I don't want y'all to think I'm buying shirts. I am not buying shirts. So here we go. When you think about an argument, think about who benefits from it first. First of all, if we want to argue about money, which is what I think that's the basis of the argument, right? At the end of the day, it's about certain people in the country have better access to the wealth than other people. And while that's totally true, from my experience, it has not been that race is a factor in access to that privilege. Because like I've said before, I grew up in a strange, I'm sorry, Mary, I'm breaking up. Let me see if I can reduce some of my load. I got a lot of windows open. But so I grew up in an area where I saw very poor people of all races and I saw very wealthy people of all races, and it was always the wealthy, the 1% people who always looked out for each other. My voice is messing up already. Got to drink a little coffee. So let's think about this, right? Any argument in taking wealth from another group or penalizing them because of wealth, you have to look at, does it actually make sense from a percentage perspective? Let's just deal with percentages, right? So the argument is, so from the Whizzy community, if there is such a thing, which I don't think there is, but if I don't say that, y'all don't know what I'm talking about. 99% of that community is poor, right? 99% is just like everybody else. 99% does not have ignorant wealth. They don't have yachts with palm trees and tiki huts and pools. They're like everybody else. They go to work, they put their pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. So the argument about privilege and race has nothing to do with taking any amounts of money from the 1%, where the vast majority of the wealth sits, right? So we're arguing with other poor people about 20% of the wealth. And this is why I don't like the argument. Instead of arguing over the 80% of the wealth, we argue over 20% of the wealth. How does that actually logically make any percent? I mean, just think about it from a pie chart. You want to increase the pie that's coming to your communities. Why would you go after the 20% as opposed to the 80%? And that's the argument when it comes down, when it's a race-based argument, right? Because you're looking at a community based on race, so you have to look at the wealth in that community as opposed to the bigger pie, the bigger picture. And if you really think about it, it's not logical to have a debate on race privilege, because from a logical who does it benefit perspective, it benefits the 1% to make the argument. Why? Because if I'm the 1%, you're not coming after my pocket, you're going after other poor people's pockets, right? So chew on that for a minute. And then I think about, what is it really? It's a 1% privilege. It is a birth privilege. I see all types of privilege in my life. I have a lot of privilege. I don't want to talk about the privileges you have, because I don't believe the work we got to do is external and pointing fingers at other people. The work we got to do is pointing fingers at ourselves and figuring out how do we stop feeding into all of this. And so I have privilege in how I was born, my birth privilege, because I was born into a family where there were two bachelor degrees minimally. There were two professionals who raised me. They gave me access to a lot of tools. They put me in good schools. They put me in a good community. So I have a lot of birth privilege that I've exercised throughout my life, and I still exercise, because it allows me to acquire more of the money stuff needed to survive. So it truly is, it's a birth privilege. That is the issue. And what I want to try to point people to is, instead of really feeding double into the 1% in terms of what they want, because one, you're dividing people. You're pissing off a lot of people when you attach an entire race to a concept. Not just that it's racist to do that, but because you're attaching 99% of the people who have nothing to do with the design and the setup of the 1% in that system. So, and this comes to mind because I read an article this morning, and there was a teacher who got in trouble because she actually, in her classroom, she was teaching white privilege. And The thing that you why is the other side upset, right? Like, why are they upset? And why is the Nazi white supremacists, whatever you want to call them, why are their numbers growing? Because their numbers are growing. It's because a large portion of the population is being pushed in that direction because of these concepts that we're teaching in universities that are racist. It's a racist concept, and it actually won't get anywhere. And people are tired. They're really tired of the race discussion. And Trent just said it, and that's true. They're not interested in you attaching what you want to their race. And so that's pushing people, and it's dividing them. So the 1% love it because, one, it's pissing off a lot of people. It's dividing people who all have the same thing in common. But then it's also going after the wealth of that group as opposed to the 80% of the wealth. And anybody with the thinking cap on knows that that's the problem. That is the root problem. And so the idea that we're walking into a time where our universities are teaching racist concepts, this is big trouble. This is huge trouble. And the last thing I'm going to say on that, from a plantation perspective, right? It's the same mindset of teaching where you teach somebody that they're less because they are a certain race, or they should have some sort of guilt because they are a certain race, or their brain doesn't work as well because the blood is thick in their brains. These are the same colonialism ideas and concepts that are racist that encourage the majority of 99% of the poor in Europe to invade the rest of the world, right? They encourage them that they're pagans. They don't know any better. And we're going to bring them Christianity, and we're going to give them food, and we're going to teach them civilization. And these are racist concepts, and taking that and flipping it and trying to use it, whether well-meaning or not, it's still a racist concept. And it's a racist approach, but it's a completely illogical one for the said goal of increasing wealth in other communities. If that's the goal, you would go after the 80%. You wouldn't go after the 20%. You would go after the people who got yachts like this. That is the issue. And this is why I'm saying the whole white privilege debate, it comes from the 1%. It's handed down because it sounds good to certain communities. It taps into some anger that they have for certain really, really ignorant folks in those populations, but they don't make up the majority, right? And so I'm hoping that we can get to a point where we can kind of put this to bed, because if it's the enemy that gave you the concept, nothing good will come out of it. These folks are always 10 steps ahead of us, right? They've thought all of this out, right? Good morning, Trinity. All right, I'm just getting past one of my difficult areas. But I had to I wanted to wrap up the best I could what I was trying to explain this weekend in terms of white privilege, in that whether it exists in certain communities or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is the poor in all communities all have the same foe. And it's not those who hold 20% of the wealth. It's those who hold 80% of the wealth. So don't let the 1% arguments that sound really, really good, they fit with the narratives and the things that you've been taught. Don't let that railroad you into support for a plantation that needs to completely go away. I don't want to say no more about that. It's a topic that's difficult, but when it comes up, it has to be addressed. We can't let people continue to divide up the masses who need to come together on concepts that are handed down by the 1%. All right. So, Catalonia. I want to go on to Catalonia. We're going to talk about Catalonia for a little bit. What's the update? So, in terms of Catalonia, what's going on? See in the picture, a whole bunch of terrorism. Y'all see that terrorism? There's terrorism all over the screen. That's some Catalonia terrorism, boy. I have a perspective on this, and this is what I'm thinking about. So let me give you the news. So what happened this weekend? So Spain had their vote. If you're not familiar with what's going on with Catalonia, hold on, y'all. I gotta take my shoes off. My feet getting hot. I gotta be comfortable. That's why y'all can't take me nowhere, but I'm okay with that. So Catalonia, they all got together, little province area in Spain. They decided that they wanted to be free. They decided that human beings are free, and they wanted to step out on their freedom and separate from Spain. So they voted. They said we're free. Then they started all that terrorism in the picture back there. All this terrorism. It's some terrorism. And so now
Spanish unity demonstration over the
everybody's chiming in on where they stand, right? So France chimed in. Well, first of all, Spain did their vote too. Spain's vote turned out Catalonia will not be free. You will not be separating. And the prime minister he invoked, what was it, Article 155. And he said, basically, we will restore law and order in Catalonia. And if you don't know what that means, you need to pay more attention into how America restores law and order. This is what's coming. And so now France chimed, okay, but we want to say it right. Spain didn't say that. Spain did not make that statement. The Spain 1% made that statement. And then France chimed in. But France didn't make that statement. The French 1% government chimed in and said, we stand by the Spain 1%. And then America chimed in. But it wasn't America. It was the American 1%, right? It's the government who works for the 1% completely on the whole border thing we talked about. So, of course, the American 1% agreed that Catalonia can't go anywhere. But then Russia came in, and Russia came in with the blow that made everything make sense to me. So the Russian one, but it wasn't Russia, right? Because most of Russians, 99% of Russia, oh no, they're just regular people like us. So the Russia 1%, Putin chimed in. And what did he say? He said it in a different way. He said the West, let me go back because I don't want to misquote. You misquote Putin, you're going to end up in a lake somewhere. You're going to end up frozen and nobody ever going to find you. They're not any different from America. I like RT and I like Russia, but I have no confusions about what the 1% are willing to do. He's just a lower 1% in the world architecture. But so what did Putin say? Putin came out and said, the West opened up Pandora's box in supporting Kosovo to break away from Serbia. Think about that. Putin didn't just come out in support for Spain. He said the West opened Pandora's box in supporting freedom and human beings being able to decide where they live, their ability to self-determine how they want to live. Putin put it out there. That is the point. His point, when we supported Serbia, right? We support Serbia, Kosovo. No, Kosovo. When we supported them breaking away, for a moment, our Americanism slipped out, right? Like the foundation of our country and what we believe in terms of human beings being able to determine for themselves how they want to live. We supported that. But that was a mistake. That had to do with I forgot what the resource was at the time why we got involved with that. One of y'all remind me. But now we're not in support of freedom in human beings. And so it's the 1%, which we just talked about when we talk about Whizzy privilege, 1% making determinations, because if human beings actually start to believe this idea that they're free, we got big problems. We got big problems, y'all. If human beings actually decide that they're not slaves on a big 1% plantation, and they can get together and determine that they can self-determine how they're going to raise their families and what their government's going to look like and how they're going to be with their neighbors and what their laws are going to be, that's big trouble. So I don't care at all what, I don't care what the 1% in any government, the 1% in any country has to say. Pay attention to what the people have to say. Because those are our people, right? Well, it's my people. I'm not 1%. I might have some friends, some of y'all out there 1%, but my interest is in what the people of Spain think, what the people of Catalonia think, the 99%, what the 99% of France think, what the 99% of Russia thinks, and what the 99% of America thinks. That's the only point. That's the only significant factor when it comes to it. What the 1% wants, we have to stand down on. Anything that they come up with, they've already thought out. They've already got a plan. Do you know what would happen if Texas seceded? You know what would happen? Who was the other one? Boston? Or was it, no, it was Massachusetts wanted to secede. Boston seceded from Massachusetts. They wanted to make their own coin. You know what would happen if provinces all over the world and human beings started deciding they don't want to be a part of these massive, massive border structures? It would be very hard to control the human population, which is actually what's going on in terms of Catalonia, Spain, and all this support for keeping the 1% breakdowns of the human farm where they are, because they're actually building, like the European Union, all this stuff, they're building United States. United Stateses. I don't think that's a word. But they're building bigger farms. Why? Because it's easier to control human beings on bigger farms than having to go and corrupt 30 or 40 different governments. You have one overlying government. And that was the big thing with Catalonia. They wanted to get away from the decisions the European Union was making for them. The decisions weren't even coming out of Spain anymore. And this is the same discussion if you look at our brothers on the right talk about in terms of globalism and the UN making decisions for America. They're walking us all into this 1% structure of control in one massive globalistic model. And so I think Putin had the key. And I think Putin told the truth in what we need to look out for. Not because he wanted us to look out for it, but because he's still irritated by that. But this is all a 1% scheme. And so, and it's not that I'm against one world sort of governing thing. I'm not against that. I believe in the Star Trek future and the Star Trek economy. I don't believe it in terms of it being controlled by a 1%, because we know how divisive they are. We know how they come up with these terms like white privilege and white fragility. And we know how they're behind the laws that send the police in the minority communities with lots of guns, police in the white communities with lots of guns. Like, we know the basis of our problem are the same groups. We know poverty exists in the white community and the black community and the Spanish community and the Asian community and all the communities it does because of that 1%. We know that around the world, all slavery exists for the sake of harvesting minerals for those big corporations and that 1%. And fighting these privilege models, sub-privilege models, as opposed to birth privilege, will never get you access to that yacht, right? If you really think about it, you're fighting people who don't have that yacht. You're fighting people who can't even get tickets to get on the yacht. So I think all of this kind of feeds together and it all wraps up into where the 1% are trying to walk us. And it's important that we stand down from their concepts, that we no longer support, their ideologies. Now, the biggest problem is, how do you do that, right? We do have to live lives. We got to eat food and we got to blah, 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 blah. But when these things come up, these little sub-arguments designed to get people who all have the same foe in common to argue and fight, we have to stand up for, no, that's racist. I'm not going to talk that way. That's racist. And even if it's true in certain communities, it's not true everywhere, because we know very poor white folks. So let's stop it. And it feeds into Catalonia. When that topic comes up, well, because they want you to debate the reason, right? They take you into the Catalonia history and they'll say, well, Catalonia, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to hear any of that. I don't care. I don't care. If people on a ranch determine that they want to live this way, that is their own choice. It is their own determination to make that choice. We don't live on a slave planet. We don't live on a prison planet. We don't live on a plantation planet. You can't be in support of slaves anywhere to the 1% or to government and say that you're against slavery at any time, which is why I said this weekend, and it got me in trouble. I said, I said Robert E. Lee is better than all of us, and I'd like to apologize for that statement. I said we should put statues of Robert E. Lee up everywhere, and I apologize because I should have said it louder. That's why I apologize, because we all some slavers. We are slavers. We don't know we're slavers. We don't know we're slavers. At least Robert E. Lee knew what was wrong with slavery. That's why he got rid of his slaves. But we don't seem to know what's wrong with slavery. We still buy our laptops. We still buy our televisions. We still buy all the things that made from minerals from all the slavery all over the world. So I stand by that point. I have no issue with any of his statues because he was significantly more of an anti-slaver than any of us today at all. There were very few slaves back then compared to how many slaves there are right now. So I'm not in support of Robert E. Lee. Don't get me wrong. North or South, none of that stuff. I have no interest in the debate. My point is we got to look at our modern support for slavery right now. We have to look at our support for the 1% right now, and we have to start removing their power. When people start talking about Catalonia, the answer is there are free people. They can go do what they want. When you start seeing soldiers show up, because they're coming, you know they're coming. Spain, listen, you think Washington is bad? Boy, you wait till Spain tastes some blood. The only reason, in Washington, we're more modeled after our English lords, right? But before the English lords were, they had one foe. It was somebody just as nasty as England back in the colonial days, not modern colonialism today, but back then. And that was Spain. Spain doesn't play, y'all. Spain, they're going to show up. You're going to see the Catalonian president, the leader, you're going to see him disappear because they've already denounced that he doesn't exist. He needs to be dethroned or whatever, the way they put it. So pay attention to Catalonia because it's not about Catalonia, right? It's about standing up to the 1%. That's what all of this has ever been about. When you look at the Congo and what the Clinton Foundation and the rest of these morons did and following up with what King Leopold did when he murdered half of the population of the Congo to pull all the cobalt out, and they tried to fight him. What was that all about? It was about freedom. Thank you, Stephanie. It's always about freedom. Do you support freedom or don't you? Are we subjects of the 1% or are we free human beings? Don't get lost in the details. Ignore the reasons and the debates and the monetary and all of the stuff that they want to talk about because they're trying to convince you in an argument that human beings are not free. Human beings are free. We're totally free. We just have a 1% that like yachts with a lot of slaves, bringing them, margaritas and, so they can sit up there. And so we have to start to eject these things from the system. All right, so we'll keep moving. So that's what's going on in Canada. Something else I wanted to talk about this morning. I know what it was. It had to do with, you know what? Let me see what y'all are talking about. I'm sorry, I'm off. I wanted to clarify this weekend. I got a little excited in the video. I watched it and I said, "Oh my God, did I do that?" And I apologize. I think I used the word dummy about 40 times. And the only reason I do that because I had a father. You couldn't use the word dummy in the house. That was a crime. You get evicted. You use anything other than the word dummy. We got away with that one. Yes, Sister Trinity said the one world order is in effect, and it's totally in effect. This is, but I think it's beyond that. I think they are significantly advanced in their planning because they're always multiple steps ahead of us. They already have the narratives in all the nations and how to divide everybody up. One of the cool things I'm finding, I got friends all over the world, and they're starting to tell me that the same exact divisive narratives are being rolled out in every single country where they're getting people to divide, because the 1% is starting to coalesce and bring all this stuff together. And eventually the American president, who doesn't have any power today, eventually they'll let you know the truth, that he doesn't have power, and that the UN or somebody else was always calling the shots, and they were getting it from Wall Street and the 1%, and however all the structures break down. Like, I don't care to think about how they all break down. It's all about the fact that our government isn't in control of itself, and that the whole world is being pushed into this one world, 1% model. And instead of focusing on each other, we got to focus on the 1%, because it always comes back to that 1%. Oh, whoa, Mary, what? Auto accident. Okay, nope, never mind. Whoa, okay. Debbie, no, Debbie is okay. It was not an auto accident. She's laughing. All right. Ooh. Y'all send me down some places. This, whew, all right. Trinity said the saddest I have seen yet. Trump is behind this. Truth. I agree that Trump is behind the 1%, but I ask everybody to think about why. I agree, Obama was behind the 1%, and it's obvious he's walking all over the world collecting his paychecks from Wall Street now. But the question is why? And my answer to that is they don't have a choice. I think it was made very clear by JFK what they're going to do to anybody who stands up to them, especially without a large support from the population, which is why, again, I'm tired of the jokes. I love jokes. And I think I posted up this week and I said, can we like stop with the personal attacks on Obama, Clinton, and Trump? And I want that to stop. And of course, I forgot who, somebody posted a joke at the bottom, and it got me laughing. It was funny, but I like jokes. But the problem is when you make it personal, when you make it too personal, then, but it was funny, yo. It was funny, but try not to make it personal, because it just divides. I'm sorry. All right, I gotta say it. It was Trump walking across the water like he was Jesus, and he had two bounty towel things in it. Wrong. It's wrong. It's not funny. Y'all stop supporting that stuff. That's not. We need to bring people together. I do like jokes. I do. It was kind of funny, but we have to stop. We really got to try to stop making it personal, because the people who voted for Trump and the people who voted for Clinton are both key to the future our children's have, period. Obama is still key to that, and Trump is still key to that. While I think that they're both off in 1% land, either man at any point in time can come back. Either man at any point in time could let something slip. Either man could be totally in support of humans being free, but they have on a costume because they know how to operate in a corrupt nation. We don't really ever know what's going on, which is why I'm saying we got to take the emotion out of it. We got to read between the cracks and stop making personal attacks. It's not a daycare. It's not, we are talking about the world. We're talking about all of this coming together. The world can completely collapse on this 1% building up. Y'all know Catalonia could be it, right? Like, you do realize that they could stand up and other nations can jump in. And if you think America, our military isn't divided morally and ethically, you got another thing coming. If you don't think that the military and the CIA got their own little spits, and the FBI and we're totally destabilized right now. Like, there's a lot of problems, and we can cause a lot of damage if the majority of the world's population aren't behind the concept of human freedom and Catalonia being free. All right, everybody's laughing about Debbie, so Debbie's okay. That's same progressive. She's off the hook. We got to make sure our sister's doing good. All the missing children go for the 1% child labor, sex trafficking. Vatican rabbit hole is deep. Yeah, and I was watching something about that this weekend, that, that apparently people in Hollywood are starting to come forward and they're starting to tell the truth. And they're starting to say, we got a real sick child trafficking business that just is thriving in Hollywood, and it has ties with the government. And that's starting to get into that Pizzagate area that y'all saying ain't true, but there's a lot of evidence over there that it ain't smelling right. And for me, I'm all for ulterior motive, ulterior ideas and second opinions. And so I think who was the guy the kid from The Hobbit? He's not a kid, he's a grown man, but he had big hairy feet and he looked like a kid. Elijah somebody from The Hobbit. I think he's actually spearheading a lot of that. I didn't look too deep into the details, but I think that he ran into some of the child sex trafficking type stuff that's going on. And okay, and so I know initially people are like, that sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. Hold on, let me say something. Hold on. Why does that not sound crazy? But there's a brother by the name of James Fallon, Dr. James Fallon. He is a neuroscientist. He's the one who does a lot of studies into the mind of a psychopath. You already know that the majority of people in our government are psychopaths. The majority of people at the top of all the religious structures are psychopaths. The majority of people at the top of the Nazi Party are psychopaths. The majority of the people at the top of the Black Power movement are psychopaths. The majority of people that climb to the top of everything, CEOs, whatever, they're psychopathic. And they've been telling us this for a very long time. Why? Because they have more tools than what we do. They're willing to go to more lengths than we are to succeed. We have consciences. We have to go to sleep at night. Psychopaths don't have that. The empathy parts of their brain tend to be shut off. So let's put that to rest. So if a person is a psychopath, but they're a professional, well-functioning psychopath, ask yourself this question. Would they not hurt a child? Of course they would. Why would they give a damn? They don't have any empathy. And based on the studies, Dr. James Fallon, he'll tell you that they understand that they understand that they realize you think hurting a child is wrong, but they don't. They don't have any feelings in that matter. And they'll convey points to you knowing that you think it's wrong, and they'll pretend that they think it's wrong. But at the end of the day, they don't have any conscience, which is why they can send drones to bomb and kill a whole bunch of kids and old ladies and people in weddings to kill one guy, because they don't give a damn. They don't have the empathy to give a damn, and they sell it to you and you buy it because you don't know they're psychopaths. So I think all of that rabbit hole is probably always going to be a lot deeper than what we think, Trini. I think we have to accept the world for how it is and stop building up these pictures of how we want it to be. It's not crazy when you really think about what our professionals actually say about the people who run all of this stuff. Yeah, Stephanie, they have all the pieces and they're putting all the pieces together. And that's what's going on with Catalonia. We're seeing a major piece being pushed in, and we're seeing people saying no. Think about the Native Americans. When the colonials came here, they fought back. They said, no, we don't want the 1% here. We don't believe you own our land and you have the abilities to tell us how to live. Oh, wow, she was in an accident, but she's okay. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. All right. Hey, Kathy, good morning. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving on. So birth privilege, we're done with that. Catalonia. So now we're on to Twitter. Oh, Lord, here we go with Twitter. And apparently, our brother Assange, some of y'all don't like Assange because some of your psychopath leaders told you that you're not supposed to like Assange and you're not supposed to like WikiLeaks. Once again, it's just data. Don't fall into the narrative. Just look at the data and form your own opinions. Personally, I think Assange is a hero. I think he is a truth teller. I think WikiLeaks just releases data. And if you have the data, you can make an intelligent decision. If you don't have the data, you can't. Which is why Dianne Feinstein and these people are so pissed off at Twitter and Assange and WikiLeaks, is because they don't want you to have the data. They don't want you to make, an intelligent decision. This is why I say I'm for no secrecy in government, completely. I think politicians should wear body cameras. Why? because it's not the police who are the problem. It actually is the politicians. The police are just doing the jobs the politicians tell them what to do. The police have no privacy. So why in the hell would the people who call the shots, who write all the laws, have any privacy? But that's what the fight is. And so what's going on is Twitter, I think, has to go before Congress. There's some sort of a panel that they got to go before. And she's requesting that Twitter release all of Assange's messages involving WikiLeaks and what's the guy, the hacker Guccifer or whatever, for all the DNC emails that got hacked and released. I think that's the wrong way. I think it's the wrong way. If you're on the left and you believe this narrative and you like that, I'd ask you to consider maybe it's not that we need to keep the DNC emails quiet. Maybe the issue is we need to know what the Republican emails have in them. Maybe the issue is government shouldn't have privacy. Government, who all works for the 1%, who's always trying to play us, always trying to hide data from us so we can't make intelligent decisions. Maybe the right fight is stop voting for Feinstein. I don't get, why are people still voting for this woman? She's like a McCain. I don't understand people and why y'all vote for who you do. Let me show you what they're talking about Assange. So Assange, again, I see Assange as, the same cat that what's Chelsea Manning and the rest of them. They're whistleblowers, y'all. They're just data. They're not trying to tell you what to think about your government. They're just saying this is what your government said. So let's listen to what they were talking about Assange
in Washington, D.C.
I mean, he's a tool of Russian intelligence, and if he's such a martyr of free speech, why doesn't WikiLeaks ever publish anything coming out of Russia?
He should be.
Okay, hold on. So he's a tool of free speech. If he is such a tool of free speech, why isn't he saying anything about that's coming out of Russia? What is Russia doing? Is Russia ruling the world? No. Is Russia invading more nations? No. Is Russia trying to start a war with China in Africa because China is trying to make friends with African countries, this established economies? No. That's us. We're trying to start a proxy war with China. We're trying to walk all these African countries back into slavery because we are destabilizing their governments because the minerals are cheaper. Why would anyone be talking about Russia? Russia's not doing a damn thing. Russia got problems. They still got the 1%, but they're not the ones invading the world. We are. So that's why, if you voted for Clinton, don't be mad. I just wanted to address what she said. That's why no one's talking about, WikiLeaks didn't talk about Russia. There's nothing to talk about.
Enemy combatant. WikiLeaks should be closed down permanently and decisively.
WikiLeaks walks like a hostile intelligence service and talks like a hostile intelligence service, often abetted by state actors like Russia. Ignorance or misplaced idealism is no longer an acceptable excuse for lionizing these demons. Assange is a narcissist who has created nothing of value. He relies on the dirty work of others to make himself famous. He's a fraud, a coward hiding behind a screen.
This guy's
He's a fraud, he's a coward, he's a guy hiding behind a screen. Unlike a fraud or a coward that's hiding behind screens that order drone strikes. Not unlike that, huh? Not unlike the congressmen who will send troops to go off and women and kids to go off to fight in their wars, but they won't go do it them damn selves and they won't let their kids go do it, huh? They're talking about cowards. We can talk about cowards. So no, again, he's just releasing data. But what all this is, again, it's a war on truth. It's a war on you being informed. Don't get on your side. Don't look at who said something and then jump behind support of it because you have that identity issue. Get rid of your identity mental illness and just look at the facts and say, you know what? We need to know the facts. This isn't about Assange, and it's not about any charges. This is about they don't want you to know some data. I think intelligent people like to know data. So, and this is the war on, and a lot of this came from a war on alt opinions, right? Second opinions. They don't want you to have an opinion. They're trying to put a wall up all around. No, not a wall around Mexico. Y'all stop it. They're trying to put a wall up, a censorship wall all around America to keep Americans going along with the narratives that their governments give them, as opposed to any dissenting voices from outside. And so this is the same shutdown that they're trying to do with RT which is another thing I got to look into. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Eco Asia. I actually got to look at Eco Asia, because now what is their name? Eco Asia, I think it's called. It's a website. I'm not sure if that's the right one. Yeah, it is. It's a search engine. Looks really cool. I'm going to say to y'all, let me show you the whole. Oh, this is so pretty. This is pretty. Y'all haven't heard of Eco Asia. Why am I talking about Eco Asia? Well, because Google is changing their algorithms. Let me show you the whole screen. Google is changing their algorithms so that now they actually can delist hits for alternative voices and alternative media. So Google is jumping completely on top of the whole censor the search engine return war, right? This war on truth, this war on extra data, this war on second opinions. And Google is fully in that war, and they're changing their algorithms so that you won't see articles from places like RT or Al Jazeera or any others. And once again, I'm not some sort of Russian spy. I know Russia lies. I know Russia lies. I know Al Jazeera lies, but I know the Washington Post lies. And if you look at everybody's lie, then you can start to figure out what the truth is. But if you only have the lies in your area and the vast majority of the population who believe everything they see, then the 1% won. And so I like Eco Asia. Why do I like them? Because every search you do with them, all the money that they make, I think it's 80%. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something like 80%. They take a certain percentages of their profits and they put their profits for planting trees. Mind-boggling. They're planting trees with their billions instead of buying yachts. They don't have billions yet. They're still kind of small, but I'm going to start to use them. I think they use a lot of Bing data is what's behind it, but it's a great company. And it's on this model where I think we have to go. And I'm gonna end on this one. It's my last point, is that I was talking a little while ago about what does a corporation in the future look like, right? Corporations we have today can't exist because the corporations we have today are all about slavery, top to bottom. They're all about getting rid of the jobs and bringing in automation and pushing human beings back into more slave-like conditions. A corporation of the future, I call them, they're profit, not non-profit companies, but they're profit-less companies. Or profit minimal companies. They're companies that have limits to the amount of ignorant profit that they can make. When you find a company that's on a model like that, you got to get behind them. So what they do is they take the excess of their dividends, they take their profit, and they do something good with it, as opposed to buying bigger and bigger yachts and bigger, more cars, and their owners, their CEOs, trying to join that trillionaire club. They're taking the excess and they're doing a solid for humanity. And so this is another way we fight against the 1%. So if you want to fight against the 1%, lay down your arms for the kids in the inner city. Lay down your arms for white privilege. Lay down your arms for all of these concepts people come up with to keep people divided, to walk everybody back into a place of slavery. And get behind these companies, get behind anybody, anything that is dissenting against the 1%. If it hurts the 1%, it's a good thing. If it helps the 1%, it's a bad thing. You don't need to know why. You don't need to process why. It doesn't need to make sense in your sense of how you think the world works or how you were raised. If it hurts the 1%, it's a phenomenal thing. If it helps the 1%, have no parts in it. So I'm officially going to switch my my search engine from Google over to Eco Asia. Not that it's going to make a lot of big difference. So I switch mine and they'll have, I don't know, how many Google searches do I do a day? 15 less searches. But if you switch, then it's 30. And someone else switches, it's a couple hundred. And at a certain point in time, Google will start to notice. And this is how we fight this war, is we get to a point where corporations are starting to notice that we give a damn now about consumerism. We give a damn about handing everything to the 1%. And we're actually going to change our behaviors and support the companies that are behind humanity and are behind freedom, because that's what this is all about. So I'm going to take a look at the comments and I'm going to and I'm gonna disappear. I always like to mention. I read all your comments, by the way. I always go back and I read everything. I don't always have a chance to respond to everybody, but I always, because the only way that we get anywhere is we got to listen to each other. We can't talk at each other. We have to listen to each other. And the only way people want to listen to you is you don't start hitting them with racism. You don't start hitting them, making things personal, attacking the leaders they put their hope in personally. I think eventually they'll walk away from some of those leaders, but we have to stop. We got to take the emotion out, because it's that emotion that it slays intellect and it slays intelligence. Seth Rich gave it, yeah, I think brother Seth, and he's still all over Facebook. I love y'all, but some Seth. I see Seth everywhere. Boy, I didn't know who Seth was. I was like, who is this dude? Why does he keep sending? He's setting up profiles everywhere. Just keep sending me friend requests. Who the heck is this dude? And I realized it was Seth. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So and that could be the case, and they took care of him. Again, if your group is murdering people because those people want you to know the truth, maybe you're in the wrong group. Maybe you should look somewhere else. Brother Jeff said elections are fixed. She wins because the 1% wants her to win, and I agree with that. And that's we're talking about Feinstein back there, and so, but the 1% can only manifest their lies to a certain degree, right? They need a certain percent of the population to agree with the way they're going, to agree with how they're voting, to cheer and to watch those politicians that work for the 1%. If we can get the majority of people to walk away from it, and it's obvious that nobody has a Dianne Feinstein or John McCain sign up in their yard and they win, we can call shenanigans, right? And that's how we get somewhere, is we got to start calling shenanigans. Yes, Chelsea Manning is another true hero. Yep, I'm on it. Appreciate it, Stephanie. I don't do anything. I look at things. I take myself outside of myself and I try to process it logically with some intelligence, not in how I was raised or what I know, but just in how it looks. And if it looks like slavery and it smells like some slavery and it smells like 1% dividing people up, causing problems, then that's what I'm gonna call it. So I definitely appreciate your support. Yeah, and that's a good question. Sister Kathy asked about Eco Asia. I didn't look at it yet. So on your smartphone, because I do a lot of searches on my smartphone, and on Android, you have like a little widget that you can put on your screen. And I'm gonna look and see if I haven't looked to see if they have a widget yet. I would think that they do, because they have like 16 million users, I think is what they said in an interview. And so I'm gonna delete the Google app so they can see that I deleted it, and then I'll put in the widget for Eco Asia if they actually have it. And another, if you don't like Eco Asia, you don't have to. What is the other one? DuckDuckGo. But just go somewhere else. If Google actually sees a 5% shift, they're going to fix that. And we want to get behind the corporations and the social media companies that are behind free speech. Anyone that's behind freedom, free speech, giving people back the power to decide, that's who we want to get behind. Stop supporting the 1%. The search engine, how's it spelled? It's Eco Asia, ECOSIA.org. Yes, and I'm in. So Sister Emily said, some bright dude once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. For some reason, I was thinking that was Einstein. I don't know. Call it fake news if you want to call it. I don't know. But that is spot on. And that's how we get out of this. That's how we get out of this, is we have to change how we think. If we are allied with people who want us to stay locked into the same sort of thinking pattern we're in, then we'll never get out of it. Politicians will not get us out of it, because the politicians are locked into that same mindset. They're locked into the system. I'm not saying they're evil. I don't think psychopaths are evil. Psychopaths are just psychopaths. But they pay attention to what we want, and they respond to that. If they stop making the decisions and we go back to making the decisions, and if they don't do what we say, we vote them out of office, then the psychopaths are going to respond. So anyway, y'all, that's what I got for today. Appreciate you taking the time. I was running a little late today. Just keep thinking forward, keep thinking positively. We can get out of this any day we want. It's just a matter of making the things go viral that we need other people to see, we need other people to watch, and the mindsets we need to change so we can solve the problems from outside of the system, outside of the game. We can't combat the Coliseum while we're in the Coliseum fighting with lions on the other side. You combat the Coliseum from outside the Coliseum, from outside of that thinking, and collapsing the Coliseum, because perhaps it shouldn't exist. Anyways, Gerard, y'all have a great day. Love y'all.